Alright, I am back. I'm Todd Baker and back by, I'm not going to say popular demand, but some people watched the last video, which was cool, and left some nice comments. So here we go again with more game audio insights. This time again with Monument Valley 3. I'll try and keep this one a little bit more concise maybe, and we'll get straight into it. I want to have a look at a less subtle element, which is these mandala sequences that we have in Monument Valley 3. We had them in Monument Valley 2 as well, and I guess these are a sort of evolution of that. They have more narrative meaning, I think, in this game. And so here we are in the first one. Just to note what's happening in the background here, we've got a kind of drone with some nice phrases on the hardanger that Charlie Gray recorded for us. Lucy did a session with him remote in the Highlands, and a lovely fiddle-like instrument. There's a few phrases from that I just kind of used over a drone here with a kind of tiny bit of ocean wash, but I kind of wanted the drone to kind of be front and center, if you like. I thought what we'd do is actually listen to it in the interest of almost tutorializing it. Listen to this sequence first without sound. So here we go. So we step on that plinth and it initiates this kind of canned animation intro. And this is like a fixed timing. So that's our first sync point, and then we get to here where the mandala like light shard explodes, and then we're in another kind of sustained state where we can start our interaction. And then I guess you've got two visual elements here. One is this mirrored drawing mandala, and the other is this completion amount, which is the ring you see that's closing in as I draw, and then there's that another event there where it completes. And in terms of the, I'm trying to think, if you think, put you in the mindset of us listening to this fresh, and it's like, how do we want this to sound? We've obviously got this draw event. You can see things are glowing a little bit more as you first grab them. You can see that you can go fast and slow. You can see that it's sort of coming towards the center, the radial position of your dots is kind of part of how it feels. And you'll see that we hook into that. And then, having completed the right amount of drawing, if you like, we can then tap on the staff and we get the outro, which kind of consolidates your drawing into this little 3D-like version of it. And then it goes onto your staff and you've harvested the sacred light. So just taking you through thinking on that before even listening to sound. So let's listen to it now with audio. Obviously our nav pings are in tune as per the last video with our drone. So here's the intro sequence. And then there's the explosion of the fragment. And so I guess one of the things to notice here is that we've got that one shot kind of baked fixed timing sequence of the intro, but when we hit the explosion, then that drone with the hardanger that we sort of set up the level with has disappeared. I've kind of completely ducked that out of the way and replaced it with this more kind of ethereal loop that you're hearing now. And then in terms of the interaction, so you heard you can hear obviously the drawing sounds, you can hear a radial element as you get close to the center, and then you heard that ring had a sort of tonal shimmer that increased in volume and then completed with the animation. But from this point you can just draw and get happy with your creation and then hit the tap to complete. And then we get our outro. And notice that from the point that you tap to complete, it's slowly faded in the drone that we started with again. I guess the other trick to notice there is that on that sort of tap to complete consolidation of the mandala, then you get that trick of having a little moment of silence before it sort of explodes out into its final form, which is that classic cinematic trick. If you're looking to emphasize contrast and give something more impact, then nothing does that better than having a little bit of silence just before the big impact. And it just felt right in terms of this. Just to talk about these narratively, these are the kind of sacred light variants, like full spoilers here with the game. And later you have these more sustainable nature variants of this energy harvesting, which obviously we wanted to sound different. This one has that kind of more angular, almost techie like feel to it, and it's true of the visuals as well, is that they're more angular in elements, as we'll see by contrast at the later ones. And just in general, like, it's a bit of an opportunity that they punctuate the end of each level, so why not make it a bit more of a sort of show-offy sound design moment in that respect. They're kind of fun and a bit like they should feel powerful in some ways, because you are extracting energy to keep your lighthouse powered and illuminated. So it's the most in a game that is fairly ambient in many ways and kind of chill, these are the kind of most impactful moments, really, these that punctuate, as I said, the end of each level. So just to have a look at how those are set up in Wise. Again, there's different ways that you could do this. I mean, I thought that having the same set of events trigger and the same parameters for every mandala would be the best way, and then just control it with switch groups that are controlled by states. So you can see these are the different elements, like the intro that we were just listening to then, where if you're in the town, it'd be this. And the switch group that's associated with is mandala type, which has these various different mandala moments that are in the game. So every time you step on the mandala plinth, you're triggering this sequence of events for that intro, for the explode, which is obviously, if I was to try a different one, which we'll see in game in a second, there's different variants of that explode moment, as with this one. So that meant that I just like the idea of organizing them like this and being able to sort of preview the sounds as I just was back to back from a mix point of view. And it means that you're just triggering that same sequence of events, and all I need to do then is set the appropriate state to be the right mandala. So, in the case of that would be the town one that we were just listening to, and the other variants. And then in terms of the more interactive draw layers and stuff, then we've got the grab, which is when you initially click. It's actually a pretty subtle element. I ended up mixing that quite low. And then the actual draw itself, which is parameterized with a draw speed. So here's our draw speed parameter, and this is us drawing at different speeds. That's the curve that worked well. When I'm setting these, I'm definitely connected with the game to Unity, and trying to find the point at which that feels good when you're interacting. You've got that completion layer as well, which is the one that, let's have a listen. The ring that is completing around the outside. It's not there, it's only sort of audible in the last stage, because I think it was more necessary to have a bit of space, really, mix-wise, for just the interaction. So it's just a visual cue until it gets, maybe 2/3 of the way, and then you start to hear it. In the case of the town, this is what we heard then. So you're getting closer to completion, and then at the last minute it ducks back down again. It's that sort of trick, because you'll then get the complete one shot. Not that one. We'll see that in a second. On the town. Bit of a less dramatic one. Which is a one shot. And then we get our outro. So, again, similar to the last video on nav pings where it was all about this sort of tonal cohesion, then what we've got, if I actually look in the Reaper project, which I can do now, the common elements are there in terms of there's kind of sparkles and atonal layers to these, but the tonal elements are tuned in the case of each mandala. So this is my Reaper project with all the various layers. And if you listen to another one, for example, this note, you can hear there is different in the different mandalas, which you can see I'm working to capture the game here. I tried to leave doing these mandalas pretty late in the project when we knew what the sound was going to be in each scene in the level for the different mandalas, because that makes sense, right? That you can then pivot off what you know is there. And I have got the audio captured here of that drone, so I can work on all these intros and stuff. And yeah, so just where there is tonality in these early Sacred Light variants, and in all of them essentially, then I'm tuning things sympathetically again to the context point of the music that you're coming out of when you go into these mandala sequences. Because you would really notice a difference if it was just the same sound. You'd basically either just make them atonal, which I didn't want to do because it's just fun having these tonal elements to the sound design. I think it's what people really respond to about the audio in these games. So you'd either make them atonal, or you'd have the tonal elements like I am, have them all the same, and it'd be clashy as hell when you're in a different key, like here to it is here. And or you do what we've done is just tune them up basically for each instance. And then in addition to that, you've got these variants. So kind of to finish off, I'll just show you the other versions of the mandalas. So what have we got here? The Red Moon Big Plinth. So narratively, this is the point when things, I guess, start to go very wrong. And so it's the same sequence of events. You've got the mandala intro, you've got the mandala explode, you've got the draw interaction, you've got the completion layer, you got the radial layer, you got the outro, but it's just a different treatment to the sound entirely, which narratively hopefully makes the feeling like something's going very wrong. We'll have a listen. Slightly different intro and different intro timing actually on this one, so it had to be a bit bespoke. Okay, so it's almost leading you. Something's a bit ominous, sure, but it's almost leading you into a false sense of security. But if we start drawing, so we've still got radial layers there as you get in the center, but as you can see nicely visually, they're also turning it red as we near completion. We're also increasing the camera shake. So hopefully you kind of get a sense that something's not quite right at this point. Whatever you do, don't tap that staff. I went and did it. And I've broken the world. You don't really get any choice about it. So yeah, same system, completely different sonic treatment for the purpose of narrative. Let's just look at one more in contrast for when things are a lot more hopeful than that moment, I would say. This is the end of the wheat chapter, which is one of Lucy's, where we've got this lovely gamelan-esque composition happening here. So we're roaming freely in the fields with the nomad. And there's a few things, it's again the same sequence of events, but as we play this one you'll notice there's a few things that are different about certainly the sonic treatment, but I'll point out a couple of others. So we're still kind of entering this different realm, if you like, at that explosion point, but if you listen to actually the music that we were hearing there, it's not completely ducked, and you can sort of hear the shaker, and it's just very low pass, high pass, and there's subtly kind of still ticking away there, as well as there being a sort of more progressive, like hopefulness, hopefully in that sort of hopeful melancholy way that Monument Valley tends to sound, and the interactions on top of that are, you'll hear kind of foliage and these more organic layers than the kind of angular synthetic layers of the previous ones. The completion will start to come in now. It's just got kind of bird tweets and stuff, and then more of a chord on the completion one shot. The radial layer's got that kind of nice shimmer to it. And then when we complete, you'll hear the music come back in. Nice nickel harper phrase there, one of Lucy's instruments. And I think that whereas hopefully what that feels like, you've got these nature layers as part of the sounds, but it's also like it's not quite like disrupting the reality as much as the earlier ones, because with this narrative theme, as this is more in tune with nature and its kind of sustainable form of energy, then the idea being that you don't sonically, it's more harmonious with the general feel of things in the level. So yeah, that was all I was going to talk about with this one. Hopefully a pretty comprehensive look at the sounds, what they mean in a game narratively, and how they're kind of constructed, and sort of just slightly unpick my thinking on them. Thanks again to anyone that watched the last video and commented. Feel free to whack any questions in the comments again on this one. And yeah, again, if people like this, then I'd be happy to try and do more. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.